Hi, I wanted to make this video because I've been thinking, and this time I've been thinking about confidence. So the reason I've been thinking about confidence is because, like most people, I want to know how to have more of it. I know that some people seem to have more than others, so what's the secret? Is it just something that you're either born with or not, or can you increase your confidence if you know how? So it seemed like a good subject to dig a bit deeper at, to see what there is to find out and if we can learn something to take away. So, what does it mean to be a confident person? I found a definition that seems to sum it up quite well. So being a confident person means having a positive and realistic belief in your own abilities, qualities and judgment. It involves trusting yourself to handle various situations, express your opinions and take on challenges without excessive doubt or fear. Confident people believe in their capacity to succeed and are comfortable with who they are. So, that's interesting because when I think about what I think will bring me more confidence, I generally connect it to being better at something than I currently am. I think I've always assumed that confidence would come naturally, if you become good at something. And I suppose there probably is some truth in that, but I think what I'm hearing is that a confident person would have felt confident regardless of whether they were good at the thing or not. I've also noticed the other side of that coin, that an unconfident person is still unconfident even when they get good at something. So I guess that adds to the evidence that confidence isn't actually connected to being good at something. And I have to say that I rather like that idea of not needing to be good at everything in order to be confident. But how do I get there? It sounds like I need to believe that I'm good enough before I've even tried, which does sound a bit tricky. But if some people can do it, then surely we can too. So I've often asked myself that question, am I good enough? And I find it quite a difficult one to answer. And if I'm not good enough already, what do I need to do to get there? I always thought the fact that I've never been able to quite get there was my problem. But maybe the real problem is thinking that I need to get anywhere other than right where I am. So in a way, I'm surprised that it hasn't occurred to me before, because I've worked in a corporate job long enough to know all about setting smart objectives that are measurable and achievable. But for some reason, it never occurred to me that being good enough doesn't actually work as a goal. So I don't know what the end goal looks like. How can I know when I've achieved it? So I guess I just assumed that it would be a feeling, that I would know when I finally got there because I'd feel confident, and until then I'd better just keep trying to be a bit better. But better at what? I think clearly I've been getting this all wrong. So for the broader definition of good enough, it seems to be around being fit for purpose, so meeting the minimum requirements rather than being perfect. So it's more about accepting a satisfactory outcome rather than striving for perfection. So I don't know about you, but hearing that makes me see somewhere else I might have been going wrong. So if that's what the broader meaning of good enough is, how does that differ from what it's been meaning to me? So I had a bit of a think about the situations where I seem to be most troubled by the question, am I good enough? And they seem to mainly fall into three categories. Am I clever enough? Am I successful enough? Is the way I look good enough? I could probably find quite a few more if I put my mind to it, but those seem to be the biggest ones. And when I think about those questions, I wonder who I thought was supposed to answer them other than me. So if I try to imagine asking a friend if I'm clever enough, successful enough, or look good enough, I'm fairly sure that they would say yes to all of them. And if I imagine asking my employer if I'm clever enough, successful enough, or look good enough, I think they'd find it rather strange and maybe remind me that those are not in my objectives. So who is it that might say no to those questions? So I guess we can't deny that other people's opinions do matter in life, but does anyone else really know us well enough or could be objective enough to truly answer those questions for us? So I think I'm starting to understand that maybe no one else can answer those questions for me, only me. So why is it hard for me to say yes to them? I guess it could be because the questions themselves aren't clear. Am I clever enough for what? Am I successful enough for what? And do I look good enough for what? I'm starting to see that it maybe doesn't matter what the what is, because the answer has to come from me. And if I want to be a confident person, the answer always has to be yes. Am I clever enough? Yes. Am I successful enough? Yes. Do I look good enough? Yes. Could I be better at any of those things? Yes. Everyone can always be better at things, but am I good enough just as I am? Yes. Does the same apply to you? Yes. Do we believe it yet? I don't know. So, at certain points in our lives, we probably all have to listen to someone else's opinion of us, and we'll probably be affected by that. And if you're a sensitive person or even a highly sensitive person, you might be deeply affected by someone else's words and spend a long time contemplating the things they've said. I'm starting to see that this is likely to be what's happened to me, and probably I've given a lot of power to other people's words throughout my life. I know I'm still capable of that now, but I need to remember that no matter what anyone else says, I'm still good enough exactly as I am. And I think it probably helps if you can build your own thoughts and opinions of yourself that you believe and trust. And then you might find it easier to hear feedback from other people and know whether there's value in what they're saying or whether you're probably best to just ignore it and move on. Taking constructive feedback can be a bit of a challenge, but if you already know yourself and believe that you're good enough, it becomes a bit easier. And, if the feedback is thoughtful and useful, I think, you'd be glad that you were able to listen to it and learn from it. And if you don't already know yourself and believe that you're good enough, hearing something negative can probably be quite damaging. So for example, when I was younger at school, I received some negative comments that I wasn't very bright, and those stayed with me. I know now that I didn't deserve those comments, but at the time, I didn't know myself very well, so I assumed the other person must be telling the truth and that I wasn't good enough. And if you've had a lot of things like that in your life, you're probably facing more of a challenge to really believe that you're good enough. But I think try not to let that get in the way, because really it doesn't matter what's gone on in your past or what anyone has said to you. You're the only one who can decide if you're good enough. And the answer is always the same: yes. You don't have to be good at everything or anything. And that's the beauty of being an individual. And every individual is good enough, just as they are. So when it turns out that you can't play the piano or you took a job that wasn't right for you, those things don't mean that you're not good enough, just that they're not the right things for you. That's the secret to confidence, knowing and believing that you're good enough no matter what happens or where your strengths are. None of it can change the answer to the question, am I good enough? Because the answer is always yes. Because being enough means recognising your own worth and completeness as a person without needing external validation. It means accepting yourself fully, including your strengths and your weaknesses. It's basically a belief, and a belief is a choice. And that choice has no connection to your achievements or the opinions of other people. So, this is great news. Confidence is available to everyone. There's literally no one who doesn't meet the criteria. We just have to know and believe that we're enough, just as we are. So, let's start repeating that message to ourselves every day. I'm good enough, just as I am. So I'm not saying that it'll always be easy, but it's a belief, and a belief is a choice. So I've made my choice, and I hope that you do too. So let's see how we start to feel after we've been practicing that belief for a bit longer. I've actually already found it useful to remind myself, any time when my confidence starts to wobble, I just say it again. Don't worry, you're good enough, just as you are. And it really does help. So, getting back to the original question, what's the secret to confidence? Is it something you're born with, or can you learn to have more of it? Well, I think the secret to confidence is knowing and believing that you're good enough, just as you are. And that's it. There's nothing else truly that has a lasting impact. Not achievements, not looks, just the knowledge that you're already good enough. So I'm happy to report that you are already good enough, and so am I. So don't forget to say it every day. I'm good enough, just as I am. And then see if your confidence starts to grow. I'm feeling quite confident that it will. So I hope you've taken something useful from this video, but I think that's all for this time. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time. Bye.